You can go to jail for 3 years if you defend Putin or defend Russia. In Slovakia, right next door, they're threatening 25 years for the same. The European Union has dropped a continent-wide ban on Sputnik and RT because they're connected to the Russian government. Go on Twitter right now. You could see plenty of people, some with tens or even hundreds of thousands of subscribers, who want to use this war as an excuse to ban Tucker Carlson or ban Fox News or whatever. And let's be real, Fox News overwhelmingly just sucks. So I don't even need to tell you what these creatures think should be done to programs like this one. In fact, here's something to keep in mind, and this was posted on a social media site by a user calling himself Dr. Sex. Yeah, I know, whatever. Anyway, here's what he said, quote, "When liberals get excited seeing dead Russians and demand only the most brutal methods in killing them, they are thinking of you. For years now, they've been linking you with Russia and with Russians. When they see dead Russians, they get an orgasmic dopamine hit. Not only because people who are ostensibly hostile to the liberal system are suffering, but also because in their sick and twisted Revenge of the Nerds genocide of normal people, they're the plucky Ukrainian resistance fighter, and you are the racist, fascist, Russian white man. Do not forget that." He's right. And he's right in the bigger picture. When left-wingers want all of the Russian vodka trashed at the liquor store, it's because they want your ability to earn a living wiped out if you disagree with them or if you stand against them. They want no-fly zones and bombing runs and war in Russia because deep down, they wish that they had those things right here. Members of the left don't have foreign enemies. They have foreigners who remind them of their domestic enemies. Now, the same isn't true for the right. In fact, for them, it's almost completely different. For them, they want insane wars abroad as a distraction from how neutered and weak and cowardly and useless and feckless and castrated they are right here at home. Bombing foreign countries is like a lethal form of Viagra for these people. It makes them think for just a brief moment that they actually have working dicks. Of course, we know that they don't. None of the Republicans who want to shoot down Vladimir Putin's MiGs, at the risk, by the way, of starting a nuclear war, would ever risk their own reputations to seriously fight against, say anti-white racism in America, or forced injections on the entire populace, or stand up for the January 6th political prisoners, for that matter. The other day, Indiana Republican Congresswoman Victoria Spartz spoke on the House floor and babbled that Ukraine, quote, should teach us what it means to be a free country, and how hard it is to get your rights and freedoms back when you lose it. Hey, idiot, America isn't a free country right now. What are you doing about that? Nothing. Because the Biden administration has successfully distracted with a stupid war that it deserves half of the blame for intentionally starting. On his radio show on Wednesday, Sean Hannity had this brilliant idea that we should bomb the Russian military convoy moving from Belarus down toward Kyiv. Well, wouldn't that start a world war, you might ask? Nope, don't worry about it. Hannity has that covered. He had a brilliant idea. We should just bomb it, but then say that we didn't, so that Putin won't know who to retaliate against. Seriously, I am serious. He said that. That was Sean Hannity's idea. It's all an insane and sick joke. Karl Marx claimed that religion was the opiate of the masses. He was wrong. In America, Fox News is the opiate of the masses. Sean Hannity struts around on TV babbling about issues that don't actually even matter to his listeners. Fighting in Ukraine, fighting in Afghanistan, fighting in Iraq. Hell, I bet he still delivers updates on the Benghazi bombing from time to time. He's a vaudeville performer. He's sick. He plays this rock-solid conservative, but he'll never take a real risk or cover any issue that wasn't carefully outlined by his enemies or his handlers beforehand to make sure that he doesn't cross the line. And the same is true for all of them at Fox News. By the way, the war in Ukraine itself is turning into another test run of how much lying leaders can get away with. It's just like January 6th. It's just like the Las Vegas shooting, we're now learning, and COVID-19 and the 2020 election. And of course, it's just like the Russian collusion hoax. If you've been on Twitter in the last week, you've been bombarded with ridiculous stories that were all lies. They said a Ghost of Kyiv fighter pilot was shooting down every Russian jet over the Ukrainian capital. Fake story. They said Russia bombed a Holocaust memorial in Kyiv. Fake. They said Russia was plotting to round up and execute gay people in Ukraine. Obviously fake. Meanwhile, there are some real things that the media won't tell you that are actually going on in Ukraine. They won't tell you that the Ukrainian military has a literal neo-Nazi unit. I'm not saying that the way liberals do, where everyone they don't like is a Nazi. I mean that the founder of that unit literally is a Nazi who loves Hitler. So this unit, the Azov Battalion, controls an entire city. According to a Greek civilian in that city, they have patrols roaming around and will execute anybody who tries to leave. There's a reason for this. Because Ukraine's government wants civilians to get killed. Let that sink in. Ukraine's government has calculated that the only way that they'll get foreign intervention to save them is to frame Russia for genocide. And the only way they can do that is by using civilians as human shields everywhere they can. There are armed gangs kidnapping alleged traitors and executing them without trials. And members of the Ukrainian government are celebrating it. A unit of Ukraine's armed forces have made Facebook posts boasting that they won't take any prisoners and will execute any Russians who try to surrender. Do you understand the implications of that? They are admitting war crimes publicly on social media sites that will ban me for telling you that they're doing that. These are the stories the press is hiding from you. Now, this doesn't mean that Russia is perfect, and it doesn't mean that Ukraine is satanic. What it does mean is that war is ugly and horrible for everyone involved in it, which is a big reason we just shouldn't be involved at all. It's not our stupid business. Or is something else entirely different going on in Ukraine? Some people think all the narratives about NATO and ethnic Russian rights and recreating the Soviet Union are just distractions or lies. You can find articles right now claiming that something very different is going on. Lots of articles claiming this. We've had Dr. Ariana Love on here to talk about coronavirus quite a few times, but now she has thoughts on Ukraine. She says that when Vladimir Putin had Russia intervene in Syria more than a half a decade ago, one of his objectives was to expose and destroy bioweapons labs there. And she says the same objective is going on here. Go into Ukraine and take out the biolabs. Whose biolabs? What are they making in these biolabs and why? For those details, we have to turn to Ariana directly, and she joins us now. Dr. Love, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure to be back, Stu.
I've seen multiple reports of this all over the place. Where are they coming from? What is the source of this information?
Well, I mean, there is actually a receipts online of bioweapons labs in Ukraine. So, the Bidens have their hands in a lot of this. You just look at Hunter Biden, he was set on the board for Burisma Holdings Ltd. It's one of Ukraine's largest gas companies. And Trump and Rudy Giuliani pressed the Ukrainians to investigate Burisma and Hunter Biden's role, and they uncovered tax violation and money laundering. So it was back in 2011, Russia Today reported that Ukraine had become Europe's capital for organ harvesting. And also it's a hub for child sex trafficking. And there were reports in the mainstream media, Russia Today, of baby stem cell harvesting operation in Ukraine. And the baby stem cells we know are used in the COVID vaccines. So since 2018, Russian government was saying that the US was running a secret bioweapons lab in Georgia. This was reported by 21st Century Wire, and developing this Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever. So if you look at what Putin did in Syria in 2016 when he went in there to clean up the bioweapons labs. And he also chased ISIS terrorists out of Syria. But on February 24th, Russia entered Ukraine. And on February 26th, just a couple days later, the US government deleted from their website all evidence of their bioweapons lab activity in the US Embassy of Ukraine website. However, there it is archived, and people have been posting that. So since 2019, under the Biological Threat Reduction Program, the BTRP, under Ukraine's COVID-19 response, this is what they had deleted from the website. The BTRP and the US government constructed two bioweapons labs in Kiev and Odessa. So they admit to those two. These labs were assessing the avian flu, hemorrhagic fever, hantavirus, and then the diagnosis of leptospirosis patients, plus the African swine fever and its transmission through genome sequencing and phylogenetic analysis. This is cross-species genomics. So this is gain and loss of function bioweaponry in those two labs that they admit. But there are receipts as well of basically 14 US-funded bioweapons labs in Ukraine. And you can find them at an article, US Embassy just removed all their Ukraine bioweapon lab documents from their website. Here they are. That's the title of it. So the receipts are there. There were many bioweapons labs in the in Ukraine that are funded by the US government.
Veterans Today is reporting that they have oftentimes reported, Veterans Today has oftentimes reported that these bioweapons labs exist. The United States, not only just United States funded, but Pentagon operated bioweapons labs exist in Ukraine. Do we have any idea what's inside of these labs? Do we have any idea what they're specifically researching? I mean, you made reference to this gain of function research. I mean, this is exactly what just came out of Wuhan, China. So how quickly will it be before China, goes and reclaims Taiwan and we're flying Taiwanese flags all over the place, waving them at congressional speeches, in our United States government here chanting, "I stand with Taiwan," and banning all Chinese-made products from our shelves?
These bioweapons labs, they exist. The receipts are online. They couldn't delete them. There's
and they're acknowledged on government websites. The United States government acknowledged these bioweapons labs on their website, and you're saying that they went and then they deleted them after Russia invaded Ukraine. But you go with the Wayback Machine or the archives, and you can see that they indeed are there. We've looked at these things multiple times. When you look at this and you say, well, this is just some conspiracy theory, this is some whacked out trust the plan BS. No, these bioweapons labs were there. And if they were there and the government was going to say, well, of course they're there, that would be one thing. But why, Dr. Love, are they trying to delete the evidence of their existence?
That's a good question. To hide something. I mean, do they really think that people are that dumb?
Yes.
I guess so. But yeah, so basically I had a look at the patents of all of these bioweapons that were listed on their website. And the first one is the avian flu patent. It uses mRNA and cDNA. That's the complementary DNA for cloning. It's cloning technology. And then there's a hemorrhagic fever patent. It's patented by and owned by China, and it uses cDNA and S gene. So it's also cloning technology. The S gene, it's mentioned on the WHO website. It says that the Omicron is a result of the S gene dropout. So that's gene deletion. So, and then there's the African swine fever vaccine, and that is owned by Birthbright. That's Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. It mentions cDNA, and that's cloning. And then there's the leptospirosis. They were studying their, symptoms. It causes jaundice, kidney failure, headaches, muscle pains, fever, and then bleeding. That's very much like hemorrhagic fever. And the hantavirus is it's an airborne bioweapon. It says so in the patent. The US patent was applied for in March of 2019 for an engineered spike protein of the hantavirus. it was approved, and the hantavirus vaccine patent is owned by the US Army. And it says in the patent, get this, that the 3 inventors of this vaccine technology are now deceased. That's a kind of strange. And then, any mention of these US biolabs, like on Twitter, if you use that hashtag, then the accounts were being banned and the information was being removed, which means this must be over the target. So Ukraine's President Zelensky, he used to be an actor, and now he is, clearly a New World Order puppet, and he's been oppressing the Eastern Ukrainians for years. Putin denies committing war crimes in Ukraine. And in my experience as a journalist, the Kremlin reports and Putin reports, they have a history of being credible. They never retract anything. They never are later proven to be liars. It's a credible, always credible reports. So basically, previously in 2017, Putin said something very interesting that I want to share.
I've got about a minute left here. So yeah,
Sure.
What did he say?
It's in a video, and he says, quote, "The West is run by satanic pedophiles." And this is the speech. It's on YouTube. It's online. Satanic pedophiles.
Well, he's absolutely right about that. There's no question about that. I know that in my heart of hearts. We've been trying to expose that here for quite some time.
And I think that people just need to be reminded not to lose focus, because war is very distracting, and the Mockingbird, this PSYOP, this mainstream media PSYOP, will use this to divert the attention and manipulate people. But we need to keep our attention on the fact that they want to RFID chip everybody and pass slavery mandates, and then the World Economic Forum and the World Health Organization are attempting to seize power over all nations.
Well, I'm not going to make any claims to the credibility of the Kremlin and their statements or that of Vladimir Putin, because I can't speak educatedly about that. But what I can speak educatedly about is the dishonesty of the media here. As a matter of fact, whatever they say, I just deem the opposite to be the absolute truth, because they're absolutely liars. Dr. Ariana Love, thank you for breaking this down for us. We really appreciate that.
Thanks. You're welcome.
Okay, coming up on the Stu Peters Show, U.S. congressional candidate and U.S. Navy veteran Chief Petty Officer Jerome Bell has had plenty of experience with NATO. And so is that whole story, does that line up? We'll get that next on the Stu Peters Show as we continue going over. Inflation is a really good thing. That's what these people are actually trying to tell you now. If you were paying attention or even had the stomach to be able to view Tuesday night's address to the nation, that's what they're telling you. So I have to warn you, inflation and tax hikes are Biden's only way out of our $30 trillion federal debt. So if you have $50,000 or more in your IRA or in your 401k or your savings, your money's at risk. Learn how you can protect your money with physical gold and silver. I've got some really good friends. I need you to call them. 855-647-1372. Write it down. 855-647-1372. You'll get your free gold IRA kit. Call 855-647-1372. My friends over at Goldco will give you up to $15,000 or more in free silver with a qualified account. Free silver up to $15,000. Goldco has helped thousands of Americans protect their retirement against inflation and tax hikes. So what are you waiting for? Call my friends right now at Goldco, 855-647-1372. 855-647-1372. Give them a call right now.
You asked for it, so we delivered. The Dr. Jane Ruby Show, exclusively for premium users on redvoicemedia.com. Propaganda-busting, groundbreaking interviews, and real medical truth. The Dr. Jane Ruby Show for premium users at redvoicemedia.com.